Hi, welcome to Twins Movie Review.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Luke. And today we're reviewing Quigley Down Under.
Quigley Down Under is a movie that Lucas and I both saw. I mean, when we were kids, I don't know.
Yeah, growing up.
Growing up, though, we saw it. And I never thought of it as a Western.
No, I never really did, too.
It is. It totally is a Western.
Yeah.
But a modern one, but it's a Western that never felt like a Western to me. It felt cooler than that. No offense to other Western movies, but it did. It just felt cooler, so...
Yeah, it takes place in the 1800s. I want to say it's sometime... Texas wasn't a state yet, because one of the characters refers to herself as a Texican. So it was... I don't think that Texas was even a territory at the time.
No. So Quigley Down Under, do you have the year? 90s?
Oh shoot.
We could look it up easily, but that's not what we're here for. So in the early to mid 90s is when this movie came out, and it stars Tom Selleck and one of my all-time favorite actors, Alan Rickman, and then Laura San Giacomo or Giacomo. She's from Pretty Women and the TV show Just Shoot Me.
She was Maya.
Yep, but those are the three main ones. There's other minor characters, but those are the three main ones: is Tom Selleck, Alan Rickman, and Laura. So it stars those three, and it's called Quigley Down Under. And apparently, I never thought of this, but apparently some people get confused and they think, is it the second or third in a movie, or is it in a series?
Yeah, it's like, no, it's just a standalone, I think.
I believe it's some Bob Hope movies and other ones that it's like Road to Morocco or whatever, all those different ones. So you're like, oh, it's just one of the many they do. This is Quigley Down Under. This was, Quigley Goes to the Orient. This is Quigley in the Fjords of Doom or whatever. It's not. It's just the character's name's Quigley and he's going to Australia. That's it.
The setup is that he took a job as a
sharpshooter. Yep.
In Australia, and he's American. So he travels to southwestern Australia.
Which, if you're familiar with the geography of Australia, I'm not at all.
It's about where Perth is.
That probably means something to you. All I knew was it was Australia.
I think the eastern part is where Melbourne is and where a lot of the population tends to be, I think, especially that time of...
What about Sydney? Opera House.
Not sure. I think that's on the eastern side as well. I might be wrong, but during this time that the movie takes place, it was currently under British rule.
Yeah, that's right. So
Rule.
Australia was not just a penal colony, but that's where they sent their criminals all the British criminals. That's where they were. And so that's why Americans get along so well with Australia, is we're both the outcasts of sorts from the British Empire. We're like, yeah,
Quigley even makes a joke about that, something like that in the movie.
He does. It's a very good joke. Yeah. Very good joke. I don't want to ruin it for you. So the plot, though, is just like you said, that he's a sharpshooter. He's from America, from Wyoming.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a cowboy area.
Doesn't matter. He's from Wyoming or Texas or Oklahoma. Doesn't matter. He's from America, and he's coming in response to an advertisement
in a newspaper.
In a newspaper for somebody who can shoot well enough, and he responded that he can do way better than what this guy's asking for.
At least 900 yards, he said, which is a long ways.
And not what the guy who wasn't even asking for it to be that far. The ad. So this ad that was put out in American newspapers, apparently, because that's where he read it.
They also have worldwide newspapers.
Yeah, but he read it in America and came all the way to Australia. So at that time, that was and then riding in a wagon to, a week or several days worth of wagon riding just to get out to this ranch where this guy is.
Yeah, it was like a few days.
It's a total of, I thought he said 2 months or something like that he was, had to work his way across, and then on the ship, and then getting just to here, and then it was several days because at one point the guy says, "Oh, when are we going to get to his place?" He said, "Oh, we've been on his land. We've been going across just his land for the last few days."
Yep.
So they had already gone quite a ways, and then they were on his land for a few days, and then they got there. So it's probably at least a week. Like they were going into the depths of Australia on this rancher's land.
Otherwise known as the Outback.
Yep. And spoilers. So all that is
Yeah, all that's the setup, and now we
setup,
get to the spoilers.
Yeah, the spoilers. So the main plot, what happens. So you're like, okay, that seems fine. It's fine. He shows up. He has a really nice, really cool rifle that he can shoot really far with, very accurately, and it's great. And he impresses the guy. And so he's like, okay, great, you're hired. And the guy gave him just 50. He said the $50 in gold coins. And I looked that up. And even just to get that, like to get there in the several months and stuff, it didn't make any sense at all to me. So I was like, maybe it's 50 gold coins, not just $50 in gold coins. I thought he said $50 in gold coins. And he gave it to him. He gave him the gold. And I'm like, okay, still doesn't seem like enough just for the trouble of going there, but whatever. So he gave him that just for showing up. So he has it in his pocket. And then he dines with him that night at the main hacienda, the main little house that the guy's in with really nice food and everything. And he has slaves there as well. They have hookers that they bring in for the ranch hands. And a lot of them are Aborigines, so they're black. And
a lot of the slaves are, the hookers aren't.
And the hookers are.
Yeah?
The hookers are.
I didn't.
Because at the beginning, when he shows up to the port, he gets in a fight with these guys who are basically mistreating a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Short, and it's Laura, San Giacomo or Giacomo. I'm just going to say Laura. And they get in a fight over it, and then they find out who he is. They're like, oh, we were supposed to bring you back to the ranch. All right, well, okay, bygones be bygones, but he basically handled them. Like, he took care of business. And then writing back, that lady is one of the ones that they were bringing back as one of the hookers. And the reason they were doing that is because they said they're tired of the black hookers. They're like, that's not good enough. And so we want other ones. And so there still were like 2 or 3 at least out there, even when they got there. But that's just their job, is they're prostitutes. They're hired there, like they're not going anywhere. They're on this ranch in the middle of nowhere. So it's not just like, oh, they're a hooker for the night. No, he's hiring them for a while. So basically buying them like slaves and then keeping them there. But she's crazy. They call her Crazy Cora, Laura's character. She calls Matthew Quigley Roy.
Right.
The whole time. And he's like, I don't know who Roy is. That's not my name. And she seems just really off in the head. Is not connected with reality.
At least in that area, yeah. It's like she's functional, but she's definitely...
And then every once in a while, you're like, oh, she's completely sane. She's fine. And she's like, what? Yeah, everything's okay. And then she doesn't make any sense, like in the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
So he has an Aboriginal like butler, like serving him, like a footman sort of situation, serving him at the meal. And then he says, okay, so why'd you ask me out here? And the whole point is that he asks him out there because he thinks the Aborigines, and he's saying this in front of this Aborigine guy. He doesn't care. He's like, oh, they're uncultured, swine and stuff, and we're trying to get them away from things. But they're being a bit of a pain, and I'm trying to clear them out. But they've learned, as backwards and as, primitive as they are, they've learned how far our rifles can shoot. And they stay just outside of rifle range. And that's where you come in, Mr. Quigley.
Well, and he also explains to him his motivation behind him. He got blinded by rage like crazy because there's something that snapped in his brain when he was really young, and his parents got slaughtered by the Aborigines.
Which again, kind of origin story of a villain, effectively, because you're like, oh, not all... Ted Lasso is one of my favorite shows, and one of the good quotes from there, and there's a lot of them, is all people are different people.
Yep, you shouldn't.
So yeah, if you had that happen to you, you would have to. I would have trouble viewing that group, that the people who hurt me or hurt my friends or hurt my family were in. differently. Like, I would.
Right. But at the same time, it's like one thing this movie sets out or portrays, I'm looking for the right term, is that the crimes of the parents should not be. Man, how the heck did I put that?
No, it's basically the things that happened to his parents or because it happened. It's to him. It deprived him of his parents.
And
It's still hurting him.
A group of people. It wasn't a people group. It was just like some individuals did it. It wasn't this whole.
Yeah, you can think of a lot of things that happen
But he
in
goes kind of crazy.
today's society that are that way, and people go crazy about it, and then attribute the actions of a few people that happen to be part of a group as the whole group.
Right.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater. So effectively, he said that's where you come in, Mr. Quigley, and then the next scene you see is outside on the porch, and Alan Rickman's character gets thrown out of his own house through a window, and then tries to go back in, gets thrown out again. His men try to come to the rescue and everything. Basically, he decides to set up in there. Quigley does, because he's a man apparently of principle, and when even propositioned to
murder,
use his skills to murder
genocide.
Innocent people,
Yeah.
his response is not, no, I'll never do that, and how dare you, I'm leaving. It's stronger than that. It's throw the man out of his own house through a window. So he's sitting in there, and you're like, well, he's going to die. There's only one of him, and this guy has a ton of ranch hands, and they all get their guns around. They're like, go get him. And he's like, oh, he's just sitting in there with that big gun. I don't know. Yeah, but it doesn't matter how that's going to end.
So Quigley is sitting in this house with his rifle, and the ranch hands are a little scared of it because they've seen what it can do. He can do with it, rather. But Alan Rickman's character's like, well, we can get him, surround him, we're going to kill him.
So he's stuck in there, and he's basically, he's going to die. He's outnumbered. They're going to get him somehow. He's ready to make that happen, and the Aborigine guy who's like the butler hits him over the head with a stick or something, knocks him out.
Yep.
So
he gets captured by.
He gets captured. They drag him around. No, they don't drag him. They kick him. They're kicking him and punching him and stuff.
Beating him up, basically.
Beating the tar out of him, like just all of them just kicking and hitting him. And then Alan Rickman says, take him out, ride 2 days and dump him, let Australia kill him. Because he's all beat up, like his ribs are probably cracked and broken. He's got blood, his eyes swollen up, everything. So, without going play by play, because that's what we've been kind of doing so far, we just wanted to give you the setup for the plot of the rest of the movie. Crazy Cora came out and tried to defend him while they were beating him up. And they're like, throw her out there too. So they take the two of them, and they take them out to the desert to get rid of them. So the whole rest of the movie is basically, they obviously survive, something happens, but the whole rest of the movie is seeing how that plays out. Like, they get dropped off, but then he tricks them into coming back, and then he kills the guy, and then the other tries to ride away, and he crawls over, and they brought his gun with them, which doesn't make any sense. I said that when I was watching. I was like,
why they did
why did they bring that out with, like, there's no reason to have his gun with them.
I was thinking maybe the guy was carrying it when he came back to talk to him, when he called him back. Because he had gold on him.
It doesn't matter. Why did they have Matthew Quigley's gun with them riding a day or two out?
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason to bring it out there at all. It should have stayed back at the ranch with everybody else. So that was silly, but it's okay. You just kind of let that go. But then he's like, oh, hey, you guys forgot the gold. And there's only two of them, by the way, instead of like 3 or 4 to take them out there and dump them. Hey, you forgot the gold. He goes to get it. Matthew stabs him, and then he managed to get his gun because the guy had the gun on him going to check on Quigley. Doesn't make sense. So he has his secret weapon, the one thing that makes him extra good. He showed he could handle himself in a fight, even without shooting that gun, by the way, at the beginning. So he can handle himself. But he still is not like super duper. His superpower is that gun, is him with that rifle. And so he takes it, and even with a swollen, bloody eye, the guy riding way away, he shoots and he gets him. And so they don't have the horses or anything, though, and they're wandering out in the wilderness. And basically this whole rest of the movie is seeing how that plays out, what happens, where they go, who helps them, who they help. Yeah, that's the plot of the movie. So we could keep
Yep.
going down the line, but no need to. Some cool stuff happens, some sad stuff happens.
Yeah, some scenes are kind of hard to watch, but at the same time,
A lot of good action
they're good.
too with it. It's just it's tough, you know.
And you'll find out why Cora's gone a little crazy, and
Yep.
you find out what happens to her and what happens to the other characters. And there's a throwback in there to Die Hard. Alan Rickman's character says something. So it's,
I don't know that it's a throwback to Die Hard.
I don't know if it's made after Die Hard. It seems like it's a throwback to
It's
Die
after.
Hard.
It's made after Die Hard.
Yeah, it
okay,
seems
so
like a throwback
what's the line
to-
are you talking about?
The line is, this Quigley character really starting to annoy me. And in Die Hard, he said this
Did he say that?
character's really
exact
starting to annoy me. Something like that.
John McClane.
Yeah. I'll have to go back.
I
and
mean, if
see
it's
for
the
sure.
exact same quote, I give that to you. I'd say it is, but I think it's just a similar quote.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He'll find out. We'll know. We'll see. But yeah, Alan Rickman is one of those. He's such a good bad guy in Die Hard, and then in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and then in Quigley Down Under. That like you see him as a bad guy and things, you're like,
Yeah, he's really good at playing a bad
he's
guy.
amazing
Yeah.
at playing a bad guy. But then you see him in Galaxy Quest,
Yeah.
where he's kind of like a pretentious whatever, but he's so good. You're like,
Humorous,
and he's a
like
good guy too. That you're like, okay,
He's got
this is
crazy
great.
range.
Right? And so, perfect choice to play Severus Snape. This guy who you're like,
good range.
ooh, complex
all this.
character, evil, bad, whatever, but maybe there's other motivations going on. Like, his acting range is so good, and he's such
And
a pro.
Those movies we'll probably cover at some point in the future too, so we'll go into more depth on his character a little bit.
What, the Die Hard movies? Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that
I
too.
think my favorite
It's like
movie's
the Harry
got to
Potter
be
movies.
Die Hard 3. It's got to be the best one, and then they started kind of going downhill after that. But that's for a different time.
I think my favorite one would probably be the first one. But anyway,
First one's classic, true. So that's the plot of the movie. The characters, Matthew Quigley is cool. I maintain almost every television show or movie I see that you're like, ooh, I really like this. There is somebody with what I like to refer to as a superpower. Some, it's an actual superpower. Others, it's not, but it's something that sets them apart, sets them above. House, in the television show House. He has a superpower. He's ridiculously smart with being able to diagnose things. It's like not realistic. It's just beyond the realm of reality that he can do that. Monk, same thing. He's got OCD, but the way he can piece things together and solve crimes and, you know, these mysteries of things, it's not realistic. Bones, Temperance Brennan, my dog Temperance is named after her. Temperance Brennan is this absolutely brilliant mind of a forensic, like she's all about looking at the bones of something and figuring out extrapolating all this information from it. It's ridiculous. So in Quigley Down Under, his superpower is him with that rifle. Like he's really capable and awesome.
but at the same time,
Anyway.
there's a type of realism to it because his shots,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
his shots are possible, but it takes a lot of training and different things. That
An amazing
not necessarily
rifle.
Gonna hit on the first try like he does. So it's
Yeah, and he's not flawless. Like he does miss sometimes when he's in the movie. He has a few times when he shoots with that rifle and does miss, but he's more rushed, things like that. But again, that it's realistic. It's like, well, adrenaline, and he's moving, and he got shot at, and he shot, and you know he missed. Well, he's not going to hit every single time. So I'm just saying, I look in movies for that type of thing. Who's the person with the superpower? And that's why that movie is great. Edge of Tomorrow that we reviewed. He had the power to, you know, reset the day and all these other things that made it so cool. I think that's what makes it is a good hook for any movie, to have a hook like, ooh, this guy's got this one edge, this cool thing, instead of they're an everyman working their way through. So you get that feeling that he is an everyman who's just a good character, working his way through things, but that he does have that edge with that rifle.
one of the things I like about this movie too is the character development through it, because he, like, for the main character, he starts out as a loner. He doesn't really trust much of anybody,
Especially not Cora.
Yeah, he's just kind of like whatever. And then as the movie progresses, you see him open up more and different things, and you see his character progress. And then they have kind of that through, in some movies, and TV shows, you got background characters that you're just like, okay, they're just kind of there.
Right.
But it seems like how they wrote these characters, even background characters, you're like, oh, I could see a story, implied story with that guy, with that guy, with that person, with that gal.
Yeah. The only ones who really have an arc to where they have good character development are the two main good guys. So Crazy Cora and Quigley. They're the only ones who really do. Everybody else, as far as their morality and their character, are static. But you kind of need that. If Alan Rickman's character, unless they worked on him and with him more, to where he felt guilty about this or did that, you're taking too much time on that, and it's a one standalone movie. It's not a series of movies where you can develop that. You kind of need that. He's the bad guy. Everybody got that? Great. Alan Rickman's the bad guy again. Awesome. Or this guy's a thug and he's a henchman. He likes guns and things and he wants to prove himself and he's hot-headed. Good, but that's still just what he is at the beginning. That's what he is. There's sometimes ones where there's like a little redemption thing where you're like, oh, they kind of hinted that at the beginning because he felt bad about this thing and then he couldn't bring himself to do this bad thing or whatever it is. Fine. But this one really, the culmination of it is Crazy Cora, maybe by the very end, may still be a little crazy, but basically has a semblance of her sanity back based on the events that happened, how they happened. And she got a little bit in her mind of like closure, like redemption, closure for things in her life. And it brought her some sanity and closure. Matthew Quigley, as Luke has very poignantly picked out, that I didn't always see it this way. But once you said that, I'm like, he was actually kind of a loner and I know this and I have this. By the end, there's a culmination where it pays off that his character is developed to the point that he's willing to open up to things, and it pays off like right at the very end. Mm-hmm. It's great that you're like, oh no, he's like he learned, like, and he's like, you know what, this, and I would say it was not just like, oh, he just kind of did it. It's earned, right? Like they've just been through. We were both in the military, and both being in the Army, I can tell you right now, I haven't seen any of the guys from basic training because we're old. Yeah. And it was over 2 decades ago. But if I ran into any of the guys that I went through basic training with, I would see them and I'd give them a hug, or I'd be like, oh man, I'd want to talk to them, and we have this instant connection because you went through this thing that's a once in a lifetime thing. It's a stressful situation. When you go through anything like that, you could not grow, I suppose. You could choose. But most people, they're going to grow and create those bonds from that. War does that. Working at a place where there's a lot of difficulties or where, you have those experiences with people, you're going to create those bonds. And so I feel like those two, all the crazy stuff they went through in the movie, it's earned. They earned that growth. Right. So it makes sense.
And with every character, it seemed they showed closure to the ones that they needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or didn't necessarily need to. But one I definitely felt that was kind of questioned at first, the butler, they had a closure on that story. So I was like, okay.
I'll say, again, we already said spoilers, so the whole idea behind that butler that I thought, oh, he betrayed him. He's so entrenched. And this is when I was a kid. I said, oh, he betrayed him.
Yeah,
and
he was
Quigley's trying to help him. And he hit him over the back of the head. That's terrible. And not until I was older and I was watching the movie with my wife and watching it, I went, I never realized Quigley was going to die. And the only way that guy even gave him a shot at survival was knocking him over the head. Yep. He saved his life with that. Now, he didn't maybe know that he was saving his life, but he would have had to known that there's no way he's getting out of there alive if he's just going to be in there and make a last stand. He's
it's kind of like the
100% dead.
Choosing between this and that, rock and a hard place type things. Like, well, you got a better shot if you don't kill anybody.
Yeah, a one in the hand versus two in the bush situation where the one in the hand is you're going to die and two in the bush is you might live.
Yeah.
I'll take the two in the bush. That's fine. Take the chance. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, we find out different
good development there. That's true.
That he has, the British people. We find out. We say we already did spoilers, but that Alan Rickman's character has an agreement with the local British peeps, so they end up trumping up charges for Quigley.
Which, You know, there's a lot of things that I see in movies where there's funny videos about it, like, oh, British people are always the villains, are always the bad guys, and they definitively are in this.
Yeah, but
Like, they're not the
yeah.
ultimate evil.
No.
They're bad, though, in this. They are. They're portrayed as bad and pompous and whatever.
But it's the specific British people. You see, it's like, okay, these people that are abusing their powers.
Yes.
It seems like.
Yeah, to a degree. So I would say, overall, those are the characters. That's the plot. That's the movie. It's great. I will give my rating first. Out of 11, I would give this movie objectively a...
There's cussing in it, too, by the way. Some
cussing and...
Not much.
And some nudity, Aboriginal women who...
Oh, yeah.
Women and men who dress like Aborigines do, which...
National Geographic nudity.
Yeah, no tops, whatever. But I think I would give this movie a 9.8 out of 11 objectively. There's some things that are just slightly more contrived than others that I'm like, that, like him having the gun out there, which is a pivotal piece. It's like, well, we have to have him have this. That's his superpower. We can't take it away. I feel like you could have and then had him come across some guys, though, after and take the gun, or they could have had there's a ton of stuff. But it did make it more dramatic and things, so I understand. But a 9.8 out of 11 objectively. Personally, my rating would be a 10.6 out of 11. It's just spectacular. It has a decent amount of comedy in the correct places. It has some good humor in it. It's definitely not a comedy movie at all, and the humor spots really stick. It's more of, it's a Western, so it's action with some drama, a little bit. But that's the gist of it. So overall, if I had to give it an overall score, it'd be 10 out of 11. If you like Westerns, I feel like you'll like it, though, too.
Yeah, I think objectively, the technical and whatnot, I would give it probably a 9, maybe a 9.5, because it does do a lot of stuff really well, a lot of stuff with the time period. There's a little bit of drawback that not a lot of people, although now that I think about it, the people that have the accents, the Australian accents, more at the port, and those that aren't are more at the ranch and stuff like that, so that's not really a drawback.
And it makes sense, too, because they'd be mixed with their accents at that point.
Right. And at that period in time, the British and Australian accent wouldn't have diverged as drastically as it has now. Any
more than the way there's a big major, like an officer, and he's like, well, yeah, sir. No, he talks like that. Well, he would talk like that, and you go back to London, to England, and there will be people talking differently and with Cockney accents and with, Right.
So the other people would have, other Australians would have, or the actual Australians, wow. Actual Australians would have more of a, I want to say, lower class accent, not the
It'd be more diverse.
Posh accent.
Yeah, it'd be more diverse from that accent that he had, yes.
And then later on, it would be, they'd separate a lot more, because nowadays, the Australian accent is distinctly, I want to say distinctly different than the British, but you can still tell it seems to be derived from it.
Yeah, it's related.
So anyway, I would give it a, in my opinion, I would give it probably a 10, because it's just really, really good, really well done.
So your technical rating's a 9, and then your personal rating's a 10.
9.5.
Out of 11.
Out of 11.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, that's the movie.
Good. I would
recommend it.
I would not only recommend it, but if you have people who have seen it before, maybe, or if you've seen it before, maybe give it another watch, because it did hit differently, me being a 42-year-old man as opposed to like a teenager, or it was different from when I was 25 and watched it. So definitely, even if you're like, oh, this is what I think of that movie, try and give it another watch. You'd be surprised maybe at how much more you'll enjoy it, appreciate it, or even maybe find some things you don't care for with it, which is fine.
Yep. So thank you for watching.
This has been Twins Movie Review. You're welcome.
Yep.
No, just kidding. I don't know how to end it.
That's all right.